Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to Truthseekers, where we explore some of the strangest stories on planet Earth. Tonight, of course, will be no different. This is a crazy story. And the reason it's so crazy is because it's a story told by a very credible man. Oftentimes, stories about UFOs and aliens are told by, let's just say, less than scrupulous people. Some people come forward and tell fantastic tales about flying saucers and alien spacecraft, secret space programs, and aliens. But when you peel back a few layers, it becomes very obvious that the story can't be true because the person telling this story's background is fake. Fake education, fake claimed military credentials or service that they never actually did. I can't tell you the number of times that someone has claimed to be in the military, and then I looked into their background and found the proof that they were never in the military. I can't tell you how many times someone has claimed to be a scientist, right, that worked on top secret projects involving aliens. And then you check on their education and find out their entire education is fake. This story, friends, is very different. And the reason that this story is so different is because the person telling this story, his background is real. He really was in the military. He attained a rank that he mentions. I checked into this gentleman's military background and found that everything that he claimed was 100% factually correct. Now, does that mean that the story he's telling, this strange story about an alien spacecraft and an alien, does that mean that his story is true? Well, no. But the fact that his actual credentials, his bona fides, can be verified certainly lends credibility to the story. This is not some nut job pretending to be a secret, space insider who never actually was in the military as he claimed, like so many people I have seen before. No, friends, this story is very different because the person telling the story is who he says he is who he says he was stationed at the base he claims that this story took place at. I should mention that this is it's sort of a lesser known story in UFO mythology or lore. And the only reason that I know so much about this particular story is because I had my own sighting as a child. And that sighting took place in the woods around my parents' summer home in Browns Mills, New Jersey. Browns Mills, New Jersey is a sleepy small town in New Jersey, sort of surrounded by lakes and woods. And I spent my summers there. And it was there that I first had my own UFO sighting, which would send me down these crazy rabbit holes, really, for the rest of my life. Interestingly, this story takes place just 2 miles, maybe 2.5 miles from my original sighting, but it happened 10 years before my sighting. I saw what can only be described as a flying saucer. It was metallic. It was definitely a solid craft. And the sighting that I had took place in the woods near my parents' summer home in Browns Mills, New Jersey. Browns Mills, New Jersey is directly right next to Fort Dix Army Base and McGuire Air Force Base. For those that don't know, McGuire Air Force Base and Fort Dix Army Base are sort of together. The Army base is on one side, and there's this huge fence, and on the other side is McGuire Air Force Base and all of the McGuire Air Force Base runways. As a child, my father would take me, and there used to be before 9/11. There used to be, the base was open. It used to be that both bases were open. You could drive through Fort Dix and see the soldiers training. Fort Dix is a basic training center, so there was always new recruits out there doing their, you know, basic training. And my father would like to watch that, but mostly my father liked to drive. They used to have a small area where you could pull your car in and watch planes take off. Mostly it was C-4 large transport planes. Never knew as a child where they were going or what they were doing, but for some reason, my father, being an aviation buff, liked to sit there and watch these planes take off. Occasionally, we get to see something more exciting, like a jet fighter, but at the time when I was a child, all they had was training jets, F-4 Phantoms. So not exactly high tech for the late 1980s, but still, as a child, it was fun to sit there and watch the planes take off and land. My father loved to do this and would bore the shit out of my brother and I, making us sit in front of the McGuire runways for hours and hours at a time, watching these planes take off and land. And this, just a few feet from where I used to sit and watch these airplanes take off and land, is where this story of this alien allegedly took place. I mentioned the person telling the story. His name was Major George Filer, is Major George Filer. And I suppose that, like me, after this event took place that he was a witness to and had knowledge of, he too would go down every rabbit hole he could find about UFOs, aliens, etc. And I believe, I'm not sure if he still is, but for a time, he was the state director of MUFON in New Jersey, which is the Mutual UFO Network, who studies UFO reports. It's a civilian organization that goes out, interviews witnesses, etc. I've always wondered, after hearing this story, if the, let's call them entities, and the craft that were involved in this story that he's telling were at all related to my own sighting, which took place just a few miles from that McGuire Air Force Base runway area. Friends, I could try to tell you the story, but I think that, Mr. Filer would certainly tell the story better than I. So for tonight, I'm going to try and relax while he tells this incredible story of what amounts to an alien being shot, killed, murdered, call it whatever you like, right at Fort Dix Army Base and McGuire Air Force Base. I'm going to cite fair use. This is a transformative work. We are educating the public about this strange story about an alien that was allegedly shot and killed in New Jersey in the late 1970s. A little bit about Mr. Filer's background. He was a major, but also he was an intelligence officer on the base. This meant that he was in a position to know about an event like this taking place. I have verified his military credentials. I have verified that he was stationed at the base at the time that this event took place. And he was responsible for the responsibilities he mentions that he was while telling his story. That much I have verified. And this, my friends, is why this is one of the good ones. This is one of the more credible stories because it's being told by a credible person whose background can be verified. A lot of the facts, little known facts that he mentions in the story, I have verified and found to be factually correct. Take from that what you will. There's also a book about this event, which I recommend. So we're gonna play a clip from a lecture that he gave where he tells the story. And again, we're citing fair use. We're educating the public. We're going to be discussing the story that he tells in this clip. It's just a great story. So, friends, without further ado, we will, I'm going to share my screen and we will hear the story from the person who the story really originates from. And that would be Major George Filer. Friends, get the popcorn. It's a great story. You're going to enjoy this one. Let's get into it.
Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but at McGuire Air Force Base is actually a combination of 3 bases. It's the only base in the country, I understand, that's composed of Army, Navy, and Air Force. Fort Dix is there, and Lakehurst. And it pretty much takes up the whole central part of New Jersey. And in 1978, an incident happened that is important for you to know about at Fort Dix, where they did Army training at the time, and also at Lakehurst Naval Air Station, which is part of this huge base, is what most people remember is famous for the Hindenburg. The Hindenburg blew up and crashed there in 1937. But other important things happened at the base. We used to have Bomark missiles there. And the Bomark missiles were designed with nuclear warheads. And the idea was when the Soviets would attack us, we would shoot off these Bomark missiles. And when they get near a Soviet bomber, they'd explode this nuclear explosion and knock down the Soviet bombers. Well, fortunately, that never actually happened, but what did happen is one of them blew up in June 7th, 1960. And this is partially a nuclear explosion, which is in the center of New Jersey, which is not, the nuclear weapon didn't explode, but the radiation came about and caused a lot of problems. And this is what it looks like today. The base is obviously closed, that part of the base. And they feel that there may be some.
Just a side note, that area where the nuclear radiation event took place. It wasn't a nuclear explosion, but the missile exploded, and there was a nuclear leak all over that area. Is sort of cordoned off. And even as a child, I've been all over that base, but that area was really, really well protected and fenced off. You couldn't get anywhere near that.
Leakage into the water of this radiation. Well, back at McGuire, the UFOs are being picked up by the radar, and one moves into Fort Dix area and lands, and there's some question exactly how the alien got out, but an alien got out, and the military police, the Army, came along and spotted him and told him to stop, to arrest him and so on. And I don't know if the alien doesn't speak English or whatever, but he does. In any case, he refused to stop, so the Army MP shot him.
And also important to note, I'm not sure that he mentions it in this specific lecture, but the landing of the flying saucer took place on Fort Dix, which is right next to McGuire Air Force Base, and the alien was running and jumped over the fence and was at the runway of McGuire Air Force Base, which is just a hop and a skip from Fort Dix, really.
Well, the alien gets shot, and apparently doesn't like it, so he starts running. Well, they alerted all the military police on the base. They alerted the state police. Right next to Fort Dix is McGuire Air Force Base. They alerted the McGuire security police. And not only did the policeman shoot the alien, he also shot at the UFO. And that's about all he'll say. I never actually talked to him, but there was a big search going on with dozens of people out there looking for him in this general area of the base. And I pick up the story when I talk to a security policeman, Jim Morris, who
I just wanted to note also that the military base is huge. It's the size of a pretty large town. Each of them, Fort Dix is the size of a pretty large town, and there is a ton of housing units there for the people on the base that live there with their families, or if they're single, there's apartments, and the same thing on the McGuire side. And both sides don't have, there's no police. There is military police in military uniforms, which is, the typical MP. So this is what he's talking about. The MPs came and shot at the alien and then went to search for the alien.
who said that he's on the McGuire side of the base, and he could see all these lights of these people searching for the alien on the Fort Dix side. Well, he's on the McGuire side. And as the Army searches, they're kind of like pushing the alien towards the McGuire Air Force Base. And the UFOs are buzzing the base. They're very angry. They're flying right down the runway at a few hundred feet and so on. And dozens of people are seeing them. And
in his book there, he does cite multiple witnesses to seeing the UFOs and the searchlights, etc. Again, it lends some credibility to this story that there's multiple witnesses to some of these events.
This security policeman from the Air Force with a state policeman find the alien on the end of the runway, who's apparently now deceased or just about. And interestingly, a couple of things started to happen. Within an hour, on something like 45 minutes, a whole group of men dressed in black arrive, and they take over the perimeter guard from this Sergeant Morris.
And here we see, as with many UFO sightings and reports of aliens, suddenly the men in black apparently arrive and cordon off the area and take over the investigation. That's just an interesting side note. I've heard of this men in black coming and cordoning off an area, taking over. We hear it with the Kecksburg incident. We hear it time and time again.
And they treat him rather nastily, actually. Take off, Sonny. You did what you're supposed to, or whatever. But in any case, they belittled him, and he felt bad about it. And then almost immediately, a C-141 lands, and it's from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
A C-140 is a very large transport plane.
And what nobody can quite figure out is how did Air Force know so quickly that this alien was shot and that he was, needed to be picked up, and this group come in and guard him and so on. It's part of the question of, what did the Air Force really know? Did they know that this craft was landing or whatever? But in any case, the story goes, by the way, I flew these C-141s and have a couple thousand hours in them. C-141 takes off and goes to Wright-Patterson. Well, that morning, I'm coming to on the base at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I go through checkpoint to get on base, and they give you a hard time coming on, make sure who you are, etc.
It's interesting to note that, according to Mr. Filer, the actual alien was loaded onto that transport plane and flown to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is mentioned in so many different alien stories from Roswell, etc., as a place where alien technology or alien bodies are taken. And there's all kinds of things in UFO mythology and lore about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base being the place where the government takes the aliens.
And I drove on base and I could see a bunch of red lights out on the end of the runway, and I thought that perhaps there was an aircraft accident. In any case, I worked in this cement block building in the command post. And when I got in the command post, the commander of the command post came up to me and told me that a UFO were in the pattern around the base, and that this alien had been shot. And I thought it was an alien from another country. And they said, no, it's not from any other country. It's an alien from space. And I said, and we want you to brief General Sadler at the 8 o'clock briefing about this alien. And I said, can we have him here? General Sadler doesn't have a very good sense of humor.
So imagine being told that you're the intelligence officer. He's the intelligence officer at the base. He gives the daily briefings to the base commanders, and he's going to have to tell the base commanders about this incident that happened with flying saucers and an alien being shot and killed, and then loaded aboard a transport plane, which was then flown to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I can imagine him, having some reservations about telling a general that this apparently happened.
So I got on the phone and I started calling around the base, radar and 438th Wing Command Post and to the Air Police and so on. But in any case, and the tower, and they all confirmed pretty much what I just told you, that UFOs were buzzing in the base and that they seemed to be angry at us. And that this alien had been found on the end of the base, and that C-141 from Wright-Patterson had come in to pick it up. And our aircraft in the air were seeing the 141, were seeing the UFOs. And interestingly enough, I don't know if you're familiar with radio traffic, but I've talked to pilots who were in Germany at the time, and they could pick up the traffic about all these reports going on between the planes and the towers talking to each other.
I'd be very interested to see if the radar data still exists from this event. I'm not sure that the radar data has ever been investigated, located, or confirmed. That's just a side note. As somebody that likes to investigate these kind of stories, that's one point of my notes here to see if the radar data can be found to confirm the story.
Now, this shows McGuire from the air, and I don't know if you can see in the lower right-hand corner.
It's good that he's showing this, but this is one of the runways, and I mentioned that there was a spot where you could pull in and watch the planes take off and land, and it's either here or over around here, where you could, as a child, my father would take me and we would watch the planes take off and land right from the runways.
Is where the alien was found. And up above that to the right is a large white area, which is like a huge ramp. And even though I used to fly into McGuire all the time, I never really noticed that field. And as the UFOs are flying around, they seem very angry and appeared like they wanted to pick up their buddy, kind of like the Marines. You grab anybody who dies and take him away. Well, this is General Sadler, and just before I briefed General Sadler, they said, don't brief the information there's like 50 people in the command post. Don't brief it out loud to everybody. That we'll handle briefing him. And again, some of the UFOs, these are the depictions based on what Commander Bethune had given me. After my briefing, which was then pretty much a standard briefing, I went over to the photo lab, and I would go over there again for all these pretty pictures every day. And when I got over there, they told me that they had some wonderful pictures could when I look at it, I had the object in my hand, started to open it, and the sergeant came up and grabbed the envelope away from me, and he said, "He can't see that." Well, what I believe was in those pictures was the actual photos of the alien.
And isn't it interesting that this is the base intelligence officer, who's being denied access to the pictures that were taken of this event? I find that very interesting. And we hear similar stories of people being told, you don't you don't have clearance, you don't have a right to know, you cannot have access to this information. Interesting side note.
But I can't prove it, but that's my indication of what it was. Now, interestingly enough, almost immediately after all this happened, I don't know if the aliens can do this, but we had a huge snowstorm. And the rumor was at that point that a UFO had crashed. And I went around the base with my camera, which I always had, and this fellow was guarding this large pile of snow. So I don't know if that snow had anything under it or not, but I thought it was interesting that somebody would guard a pile of snow. Well, part of what happened then is the security policeman who had seen the UFO and the alien were taken to Wright-Patterson. And aboard the plane, their commander essentially threatened them not to tell anybody about any of this story. And they were all transferred to various places around the world. That Sergeant Morris, for example, was transferred to Okinawa.
Yeah, and this is another common feature to some of these alien stories where people will be threatened, made to sign NDAs, or transferred away from the base where the event took place. So people that have knowledge of the event, in this case, there was many people that had knowledge of this event, were all scattered to the winds into different military bases, different assignments, and so on.
And those of us who were near retirement were retired. Those who, point is that anybody who knows anything about UFOs and a particular incident is spread apart. They don't shoot you, they just send you off to some other place, so that you can't talk about it. Because there's something about if you see a UFO or alien, can you really believe that? I'm sure all of you here have a question in your mind, do they really exist? So if you're don't have the opportunity to talk to one another, you just assume that, well, it was a case of mistaken identity or whatever. Well, I went to this is the headquarters for the military police. And after I retired, I said, this story is kind of bugging me. I want to find out what happened. So I went to the military police people, and they're very friendly and so on. But they said, we don't know anything about that. Let's look at our records, see if there's anything in the records. Well, there was nothing in the records to indicate that an alien had been shot on the base. But it did say that a team from Washington, D.C. had come in that day and conducted an exercise, and that a cleanup operation was conducted.
That's very interesting to me. So there is records that a cleanup operation happens. Maybe they were cleaning up a dead alien, right? Crazy. It's a great story.
And the security police were part of this cleanup operation. And this is the area where allegedly the UFO came down and the alien was shot. But this is very close to this other area I'll show you in a minute. But some kind of cleanup operation went on, and they closed a road on Fort Dix, indicating that possibly a UFO or part of it was there that they were cleaning up. This is allegedly what the alien looked like, more or less a typical gray. And this is the fence that he supposedly went through. On the right is Fort Dix, on the left is McGuire.
Yeah, and that fence is exactly what separates Fort Dix and McGuire Air Force Base. And it was, as a child, I would go there and you would pull your car in front of the fence and watch the planes take off and land. You'd actually be, I suppose you'd actually be on Fort Dix because behind the fence was McGuire Air Force Base, but the runway was right in front of the fence.
And right near there is this huge ramp where a UFO could nicely land. Somebody here? Any case, and this ramp has these huge floodlights. So for some reason, the Army has this area that they can land, possibly for helicopters. This is the same place seen from the air. The white part is the ramp where the UFO allegedly crashed, and the fence line here where he crossed over to the end of the runway and died. It's kind of interesting that aliens like the Air Force better than the Army. This is a picture taken from that ramp to show you how close they are, and probably the area that he moved through. And this is a shot from the end of the runway. Now, part of my investigation, I became the state director of the Air Force Association. I found that if I went and talked to military people and I said I'm with the Air Force Association, they talk to me very nicely. If I walk in and say, I'm with MUFON, I'm a UFO buff, they don't want to talk to me. So I found that by having, well, I'm the president of the Air Force Association, then they talk to you. Wing commanders, congressmen, and all the rest of it. But through that, I talked to General Young, who was the commander of the National Guard at the time, and then owned that one area of the base, and he said he knew nothing about this. And I was very depressed, and I drove home, and I passed through this little town of Tabernacle, and stopped in the local antique shop, and I asked them, do you happen to have any, models of UFOs or anything? And they said, no. I said, I'm trying to find out about the alien at Fort Dix. And they said, well, I don't know anything about the alien at Fort Dix, but I used to go and see the aliens at Wright-Patterson. I said, hey. I said, are you serious? And his wife comes in, he says, oh yes, I used to be a typist at Wright-Patterson, and we used to write up stories about the aliens and extraterrestrials and so on all the time. And he said he was in OSI, Office of Special Investigations, which is like the police force of detectives in the military.
Yeah, it's interesting too. The OSI is involved in a lot of stuff involving aliens. Some familiar with UFO mythology and lore may remember Richard Doty was from the Office of Special Investigations, the Air Force Office of Special Investigations.
And then his friend called him and said, like 3 o'clock in the morning, wakes him up and said, come over to the hangar 18F, actually not a hangar, but building 18F, and I've got something to show you. And he's like, what? He said, well, it's well worthwhile for you to come over. Well, in any case, he goes over in the middle of the night to this building, and he's let in through the entrance here, and comes in, and he's shown an alien. Now, the alien he saw looked pretty much like you and I. And this alien is from the movie Hangar 18. and I encourage you to get that movie, Hangar 18. It's available. And according to the producer of the movie, they were helped producing the movie by the government so that we would understand about UFOs. In other words, in a way, they want us to know, but they want the deniability factor. And this is the UFO in the movie, but it's similar to the one that he saw at Wright-Patterson. And I said, well, I'm going to Wright-Patterson in a couple weeks. I could stop in there. And he gave me directions of how I should go to find, the UFO to look at. So I go to Wright-Patterson, and I don't know if anyone's ever been there, but it's worthwhile going because there's a big Air Force museum with just about all the aircraft the U.S. has ever had in this museum. And another part of the base, they have the Wright brothers monument. And in a third part of the base that they still don't let you go in is where they keep the UFOs, at least some of them.
So, friends, that's about it for the actual story of the alien shot, killed, murdered, I suppose, at Fort Dix, McGuire Air Force Base in 1978. I find this story to be really fascinating because it's told by a credible source. So many stories are told by people who then you look into their background, investigate them a little bit, and find out they are not who they said they were. They are not a credible, someone you should trust. So far, I have found no reason to distrust the story being told by this major filer. I, for one, would like to call this part one, and I'm going to open a new investigation into this specific story and see if there is more corroborative evidence which can be found. Radar tapes, witnesses to the events, flight logs. I'm not sure how far back the records would be kept, however, but I think it's a story worth looking deeper into. And with that, friends, I will turn my full attention to the live chat. What do you guys think of this story? Is this a credible story? It's certainly a bit more credible than most UFO and alien stories, just based on the fact that the person who's telling the story is who he says he is. And it can be verified that he is who he says he is. I've also verified through his military records that he was indeed stationed at McGuire as a military, as an intelligence officer for the base at the time that this event took place. I think that this is one of the more or most credible stories that I have come across in a long, long time. There is a little bit of, my need is I'd like to see more data. I'd like to see more corroborating witness testimony. I'd like to see more verification to indicate that the story is indeed true. So what do you guys think? Is this a good story? Is this a true story? I would like to see more evidence. However, I suppose I am very interested in finding out more about this specific story. So many stories you can just pick apart so easily. This one, there may be some meat on the bones here. And I think further investigation would be time well spent to try to get to the truth of the story or to provide more proof of the story to bolster, the claims of this Major George Filer. Let's see, we're going to take questions and comments from the live chat. Jeanette Krasenko, I'm interested in more. Yes, I am. I am interested in more as well. I would like to see much more study of this case, which seems to be one of the lesser known cases. I don't recall really hearing very much about this. The major reason that I know about this case is because I grew up spending summers just a few miles from that base. In fact, me, my brother, my friends, we used to ride our bikes to Fort Dix Army Base and like go on the training. They had zip lines and they had these nets that you can climb up and climb over and an obstacle course. So as a kid, it was a fun place to go. And a note about the military police there, we would purposefully go to these sort of training places on the base when we knew the shifts were changing. We were less likely to be caught and told to leave by the military police if we went at certain times. And after a while, we figured out the best times to do that. There are more witness whistleblower testimonies from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in the book 50 Shades of Grays. I don't know that book, Vanessa. I will have to check that one out. I'm always interested when I hear about a good book that I don't have, because I've got most of them. I think. Dex is here. Everybody's welcoming Dex. Professor Fez, difficult, embellished with the alien angle as described here. That's definitely a sketch of a fictional alien from 1891, but something seems to have happened. Yeah, there's some sort of event that led to this story being told. I would like to see more about this event. Brad Gray, so there must be a lot of witnesses with this case. Yes, and in his book, he names some of them. Which is interesting to me because it means that there is corroborating witnesses to the story that this gentleman is telling. And I think that this one is worth the time of modern investigators to look into, where so many are simply not worth the time to look into. Gutter Gawker, why don't these guys whistleblow while serving actively? Is always after they talk. Well, I guess if you don't know military people, they follow orders, right? They're trained, they're almost brainwashed that you just follow orders. You don't question your superior officers. You do what you're told, or you're going to have trouble in your career, in your life. There's lots of things they can do. They can throw you out of the military. You're going to lose your paycheck, and So I think it's easy to sort of judge them for keeping quiet. Spooky says, were there any other sightings in the area around the same time? I found mention of a few, but I don't know that they were related. I'm going to look deeper into those sightings in the area. And I have mentioned previously that my own UFO sighting took place 2 miles from that runway some 10 years after this event, which is another reason why I am very interested in this case, to see if it may be related to my own sighting that I had as a child some 2 miles away from that actual McGuire Air Force Base runway. My experience took place just a few miles in the woods surrounding McGuire Air Force Base. And when I heard of this story for the first time, I was kind of disappointed that it happened in 1978, because my experience would have happened, in the 80s, but some 10 years after this event. So I don't know that mine was related, but it always seems funny to me that there's this crazy story about an alien being shot and killed 2 miles from where I had my sighting. I find George to be extremely comfortable telling his story. He's not hemming and hawing like most of the fraud clowns on YouTube. Yeah, I think he's a credible witness, and I'd be interested in interviewing him. I'm going to see if we can make that happen, perhaps for a part 2, but I want to spend some time seeing what other evidence I can find, and then sort of maybe I could get with him and talk to him about what it is that I find. What year was this? Sorry, I was late. This was in 1978, Bee Gees. It occurred in 1978. Gunnar Gawker, I was United States Marine Corps. Interesting. Well, Gunnar Gawker, thank you for your service. Uh, some of us appreciate those of you who actually serve in the military. I don't understand about shooting the alien in the UFO. Was the alien running back to his craft? He may have been. Yeah, we don't know. The fact that he is credible helps, but could have been a psyop on him, the base to test their reactions. Yeah, it could have been. Could have been. Let's see here. What was going on in the surrounding buildings, state secrets, that sort of thing. Well, yeah, McGuire is mostly a logistics base as far as Air Force is concerned. They didn't have like fighter wings. They were mostly, to my knowledge, McGuire is mostly logistical and support. During Desert Storm, for example, they cut off all access to the base, and civilians were no longer allowed anywhere near the base because they did not want terrorists or spies telling the Taliban or whoever, the Iraqi army and Air Force, what was taking off and landing from the base. So they cut off all access. But during Desert Storm, I remember there was planes taking off and landing. I could hear them from my parents' house in Browns Mills every 2 minutes. It was like you could hear the jet engines and the planes taking off or landing, and you could see them coming over our house to go to the landing strip. It was like a parade of C-130s, transport planes, and I think they were flying, food, supplies, tanks, jeeps, I don't know what all, ammunition thing. Yeah. Oh, more than a little bit behind. Keith, yes, they follow orders. It's a difficult thing not to follow orders. Yeah, I believe that. Cold War times, that makes sense. Yeah. They follow orders, but soldiers talk, especially if it's to do with an alien. Yeah, I would think that some people would talk, but you notice that he said that they scattered everybody to different bases so that they couldn't talk, I suppose, amongst themselves, right? Oh, wow, that would be epic if you get an interview with him, crossing fingers. Yeah, he seems like a pretty good guy, and I think that if I approach him in the right way, we'll probably get an interview. Is he still alive? When was that talk? To my knowledge, he is, but I have not looked him up yet, Spooky. So I'm going to do that this week. Gutter Gawker, you guys are a class act. Yeah, good people here. Thank you for your service, Gutter Gawker, says Jeanette Korzenko. Professor Fez says he's thinking along those lines himself. Sixtus Design, the drone technology will make future UFO investigations almost impossible. Imagine how many reports being simply drones. I totally agree with you. A lot of these sightings are uh, absolutely drones and UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, etc. Wow, that's post questions in all caps. Help Stephen see. Yeah, please, guys, remember my vision impairment. Jasmyne Emmerick, funny you lived in Browns Mills. I lived in Mount Holly. Yeah, Mount Holly's right next to Browns Mills. Actually, Jasmine, I never lived there full time. My parents had Browns Mills was once a summer home community because of the lakes surrounding there. The houses used to be like cottages, small, 2 or 3 bedroom homes that were basically there so that people could spend summers there. I grew up in Philadelphia, but every summer my mother would take my brother and me to the house in Browns Mills because there was a lake there and woods, and we would spend all summer there. And my father would work all week and just come there on the weekends and spend his, vacation weeks there. It was a great place. I had a great childhood because of Browns Mills, because it's just, when you're a kid, there's great. You can go to all the lakes. We had canoes. I went fishing every day. There's BMX bike trails all through the woods and ramps and things. I had an amazing childhood there in Browns Mills. It's funny to see that you lived in Mount Holly, which is right next to Browns Mills. A lot of UAPs, UFOs are just balloons too. Oh no, the weather balloon explanation. But sometimes, yeah, sometimes they are weather balloons. Did he sell a lot of stuff after coming out with the story? Could be a red flag. No, I believe that he did not. I mean, he wrote a book, but it wasn't exactly a bestseller, you know. And this was pre. I think his book came out like pre-Amazon times, so I'm not sure um, that he made a ton of money or anything like that. He did tell the story in a book. Um, yeah. How fun. Great childhood indeed, says Out of Mine. Yeah, that's why one of the reasons I got a cabin near lakes, because I want my children to have the same kind of experience growing up that I did and sort of get to explore the woods. And, you know, as a boy, hey, there's a forest right next to my house. I can go hiking in and see what's in there. And it was great fun. BG says there is always water involved. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, BGs. So, friends, you know, I guess one of the other things that I just wanted to cover briefly is that there's all this drama, you know, was going on in the past week with like nasty comments in the chat and people being extremely crazy nasty on Twitter to the point that I did something I never do when I just started blocking people. If people want to engage with me respectfully, ask me questions, ask anybody. I'll answer your questions. I'll talk to you. Um, you know, I guess I'm a public figure, but I think it's important that if I'm going to present this kind of information in these kind of shows, that people can ask me questions. People can disagree with me as long as they do so civilly. I have no problem with anybody disagreeing with me. I know that these strange subjects people feel very passionately about. The believers believe, the skeptics are skeptical, and I like to think that I'm somewhere in between still. I want to believe. But my point being that the drama lately has gotten incredibly crazy. And I also have been noticing that it's sort of like some people are sort of like putting this content creator against this other content creator. And I don't generally have a problem with anyone else, and I don't want to. So please do not involve me in your drama. I want to focus most of my attention on the show. And I want to not be involved in useless drama that gets me nowhere. I've got people telling me that, oh, those nasty comments are being sent by fans of this other show or whatever. This other content creator is winding up their followers and sending them against you because of this or that. And like, I don't really care. You know, I don't really want to get involved in that kind of stuff. Um, I want to focus solely on doing good shows. And, you know, the drama doesn't help anything. And here is Jean-Claude at Beyond Mystic, who says, hello, sexy people. I caught his stream earlier today. Who is that? Jenny Moon, Jean-Claude, that you have, the psychic girl? I want to see if we can get her. But maybe we can, that would be a good show talking to your friend that I think she's a frequent guest on your show. Yeah, and Success Design says, welcome, Jean-Claude. Yeah, so my point about all the drama is, listen, I do appreciate if people are like, these people are going after him and I'm gonna help him. I'll defend him in the comments or the threads or like, but I don't want you to. I don't want you to feed any of these trolls. All you do when you engage with these people who are attacking me is give them the attention that they want to get from doing that sort of thing. So my preferred method would be just completely ignore them. These kind of people never amount to much, you know. Critics critique. That's what they do. They don't create anything meaningful or useful to the world. They do not contribute to the discussion, the debate about these topics. I don't want to get involved in that. So while I appreciate people caring enough about me and this show that they want to defend me or this show, please don't. Please don't engage with these people. Just let it go. And, you know, I heard somebody say something about chaos magic, and that some of these people they're using chaos magic to create chaos between people. And then again, like trying to create drama between me and some other show host is kind of ridiculous. Like I don't, I don't have the energy. What are we gonna do? Start some like Howard Stern radio wars, like between another show? That's not going to do anything for me or my show. So I would prefer to not deal with that. And Jean-Claude said, Jenny Moonstone, she is amazing at tarot. Yeah, I'd like to talk to her. Professor Fez, if it makes you feel any better, Dolan had a stab at me in his live stream. I'm so happy about that. You'll have to tell me that story in email. What was he? Was he responding to something that you said, Professor Fez? Because I'd like to hear that story. A lot of people like Jenny. Yeah, from what I've heard, I like, but maybe she's a little bit too woo for me. But I would at least I would at least do a good interview with her and try to learn more about her. And she seems like an interesting person. And I love interviewing interesting people. That's one of my favorite things about this show and my previous show was to get to interview amazing people. And I really did get to interview a lot of amazing people in my previous show and so far in this one as well. It's really cool to have that access. It's like using my using the show to get a pass, right? To talk to some amazing people. Oh, yeah. Six of Design posts Jean-Claude at Beyond Mystics YouTube channel. You should check him out. He covers a lot of strange subjects too. And I really have been enjoying watching some of his content lately. It's nice to find a new show that you're not that I'm sick of the shows that I already watch, but you know what I mean. You find a new show and it's something a little different. Maybe Jean-Claude's not, his stuff is not exactly in my wheelhouse, but I'm enjoying it. So no one is an authority on the supernatural or paranormal. It is all conjecture until proven. Yeah, but you know how it is. Like these people just like to have these endless debates and arguments, and like this person said this and this person said that, and like I don't know. You know what? I have enough drama. I got a wife and 2 kids. That's plenty of drama for me. Like I don't have the energy for anything else. So I'm trying to focus mostly on the show and just doing good shows and good content. Fez, was that like a year and a half ago? I think I remember. Oh my God, you must have had an epic interaction with Mr. Dolan. Yeah, and I did just want to mention that by popular demand, I had this sort of unfinished documentary on Bob Lazar, and there's some pieces of it that I posted to the channel today, which got a lot of good feedback. So thank you guys. There's a piece on why the Bob Lazar lie detectors are total bullshit, and there's a piece on Bob Lazar's educational credentials completely destroyed. So you might want to check the channel. And also, last night we had a really big hiccup with the audio. The mic was not on for the first like 12 minutes of the stream. And I had a nightmare today trying to download the show, cut the first 10 minutes, and then re-upload it. Apparently, I don't know what happened, but StreamYard saves their file at some weird frame rate, like 30.30, and my video editing software would not let me set it to that. So what would happen is I could cut the 10 minutes with no audio, because we kind of restarted once I realized the error and the mic was off. Once the mic was on, we restarted it. But when I tried to render the file, the audio sync was all the way off. But eventually, I found another way to download it and get it at the regular 30 frames a second or something. And we have re-uploaded yesterday's show. Please go watch it again. Click on it, because I think it was at like 150 views, and now it's at like 9 because I had to download it and fix it and re-upload it. I hate that because then it looks like, gee, only 10 people watched that show, So please, go click on that again, or maybe watch it as a rerun. That would be great. And I'm way behind here. Vanessa Thor is asking, Professor Fez, is he reading email again? Last I checked, he has a social media manager do all of that for him. It's weird he shares her with Linda Moulton Howe. Yeah, and I was the person that discovered that because I got emails from I sent emails to both of them, and I looked at the signature and I went, why does this name sound familiar to me? Oh, this is the same social media manager that Linda Moulton Hale uses. I find that funny. And that may explain why Mr. Dolan never goes after Linda for all her bullshittery and fairy tale huckstering, because they're buddies and they share an employee together. If I like someone and someone else doesn't, it's not my job to defend them. People are entitled to their own opinion. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. And, I'm stuck in a bad situation here because I've got good people in the live chat that I really like. And then they're getting in fights with somebody else that they don't like. And everybody's supposed to take sides. And I'm trying to not take sides because it's just a lot of drama, really. And I don't mind kindly posting the Lazar video. Yeah, and I want to know from you guys, if you go and watch those Lazar videos, let me know if you would like to see more sort of film produced content like that from me that's not a live stream, because I've got about 10 more pieces like that, not necessarily about Bob Lazar, about all different things that I sort of was developing for different projects, and I never really did anything with it. So I think, yeah, I might as well post some of that stuff. Some of it is pretty well produced and pretty good, Genocide, yeah, I hear you. I engaged in defensive. Michelle today and probably should have just muted, unfollowed, ignored it all. Yeah, it's lots of drama, right? But you know what? I think that everyone is on edge right now. Everyone is on edge because of this Rona stuff. We're all on edge. Our anxiety levels are all through the roof, all of us. So we don't really. I think a lot of people are not reacting the best way that they could under usual circumstances because everybody's so stressed out and anxiety ridden, and it's terrible. It's terrible. Because I honestly don't remember. I just remember him going off at a person in chat, and they just shut up, and they were a regular contributor. I can't remember the context, just that he barely. Oh, I gotta find that clip now, BGs. I want to see that. I want to see Richard Dolan lose his shit because he's like always like a college professor, right? He's always so reserved and stately and sort of like you know he's just so I don't know. I would think that he's thick-skinned. He's you kind of have to be to do this stuff. Jean-Claude, Misa thinks drama is rude. How rude. Yeah. Professor Fez says, send them to me. I have fun with them. Yes, it has been rough, to be honest. Yeah, and now, talk about anxiety. My children, I have to decide about my children going back to school or not. And my wife and I are both going back and forth with it because it's a terrible decision. We're stuck in a terrible situation because do we want to send them? And then I think both me and my wife feel the same way. Like if God forbid one of them contracts it and gets really sick or, worse, we're going to feel terrible for sending them to school. Or if they get it and are just a carrier and they give it to either me or my wife and we get really sick or worse, each of us are going to feel terrible for making the decision to send them back to school. Personally, I don't think it's safe. I would rather, if it was my decision solely to make, I think I would not send them. However, I also realize, especially with my autistic son, Zachary, he has been so much worse to deal with. His behavior has gone way worse, way worse since no school, since March. There's something about autistic children, they get used to a routine. You get on the bus at this time, you get off the bus, you get in school, they do all these activities with him at school. There's a sensory room there for his sensory issues. gets back on the bus, he comes home, he has some snacks. He was much, much better. He was happier. He wasn't having meltdowns constantly when he was in school. Now that there's no school, it's like we don't really know what to do with him, and he doesn't know what to do with himself. He has very few interests, so he's just been having meltdowns constantly since this all began. And we both believe that if he gets back into that school routine, that he will improve, and we would certainly prefer that. But and then as far as my younger son, I don't know. We're both not sure about that either. I mean, he's 4 and he's going to like pre-K, but we're not sure that it's safe. We're just not sure that it's safe. So it's going to be a terrible decision. I almost feel like I wish I could just flip a coin so I don't have to make the decision. And yes, out of mine, it has been rough. It's been rough for a lot of people. All my grandkids are going to remote class through the end of the year. I'm so glad. Yeah, that's good. But the problem is, here's the problem with our situation. My autistic son will not sit still in front of the laptop for 5 minutes, let alone 5 hours. So that's not an option for us. Will my 4-year-old? Maybe, but I don't know how I, as a parent, I'm supposed to handle them both being in online classes at the same time. I can't do it, especially the autistic one. My autistic son, I would have to put him on my lap and literally hold him in front of the laptop, and eventually he would squirm out and run away, and I'd have to go chase him and bring him back. And it's just, so we don't really have that option in our situation. Vanessa Thor says, my son too, he's become down, maybe even depressed. Hang in there. No school and special needs parenting is rough. Yes, it is, because, and also, Vanessa, you'll be familiar with this, even if it's just sending them to school so that you as a parent could get an 8-hour break from them, right? My level of patience has gone to the basement. My patience is gone. And when he was in school, my patience was very high because I had to really deal with him from 3 o'clock in the afternoon until bedtime at 9 o'clock, which is a lot easier to do. But when you have 24/7 dealing with him, and especially with his meltdowns and being really nasty, things get rough real fast. Professor Fez, Dolan, I unsubscribed to his channel a few months ago. He had the nerve at the height of COVID to charge $59 for an online conference when others were doing it for free. It's all about the Benjamins, Jasmyne Emmerick. By the way, send me your money, you bunch of leeches. I need money. We all need money, okay? So you're a bunch of leeches that enjoy this content but don't give me any money. You're a bunch of leeches. There's a PayPal button for a reason, you bunch of leeches. You gotta donate, right? That's what you gotta do. And actually, I should check that just to see. I'm always like, some people are too polite. Some people once in a while will donate and I'm not checking it. And then they're too polite to say, hey, dummy, I donated. And you're supposed to say hello or, say whatever. So, okay, so we got no donations. And also, I wanted to just take a moment actually to thank the Patreon supporters and the people who have donated so far. Yes, out of mine, money. We need money. We need money. We all need money, right? Okay, let's see here. Yes, links in the About section for how you can give me your money. And make sure you give me some money. All of you, give me some money. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. We need the money. We need the money. We need all these leeches to start hitting that donate button. Praise the cash. And praise the YouTube algorithm, too. Carol Utley says, I was a respite care worker for 5 years. Seniors need help. Carol Utley, I did lots and lots of magic shows in senior homes. And it's funny, I really was, I was doing terrible when I first started doing magic shows in senior homes because I had like real hard rock music and everything, and it was just too loud for them and they didn't like the music. And it was so funny I went in one day and I noticed that they were playing Frank Sinatra music, and everybody was sort of tapping their toes when I got there to set up, and they were having a good time listening to Frank Sinatra. So I changed all my music to be music to their era, and then things went much better. Uh, it was like a total 180. The shows, went so well. It was weird though, because a lot of times those people would be like sleeping. Half the audience would be sleeping. And I always felt bad about that. Like, geez, half the audience was sleeping, but the half of the audience that was awake enjoyed my show. So, you know, yes. And Out of Mind shares the PayPal link, so we can all send me. You can all send me your money. Kel-Truth77, fashionably late as usual. My son's school district just announced his school will be virtual again, and I'm so super depressed now. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Kel-Truth. Because listen, it's going to be a tremendous burden on parents. They're talking about, in my state of Pennsylvania, sending child protective services to your house if your child is not doing the online classes or not doing well. That is ridiculous. It's ridiculous what's going on. And then the other thing that's going on in my state, which is absolutely, listen to this. This is great. So in our school district, I believe there was a plan that they would be all shut down until January and only online virtual classes. But for those parents who need, so the school's not safe to open, right? Because of COVID. But for those parents that need daycare, they're bringing in daycare providers at the same building, and you can pay, I think it's like $250 a week to have your child there in a daycare situation, and the daycare people will help them with the online classes. So it's not safe for the building to open for school, but it's safe for a bunch of daycare workers, and that's another issue, because some of these teachers around my area are getting paid $100,000 a year. And they're basically going to get replaced with like $10 an hour daycare workers watching the kids. It's just, all of this stuff is unfair, and I don't understand any of it. Jonaside, you are not a leech, you are a worm. Yes, some of you leeches have upgraded, right? If you give me money, you're no longer a leech. No. You're no longer a lousy leech, just leeching my content. If you give me some money on Patreon or PayPal, you will upgrade your status with me to a worm, right? And if you give me a lot of money, I will upgrade you further. UFO Gandalf is the worms unit, yes. Kel-Truth, I work full time. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. Kel-Truth, how old is your child? Can they handle doing the online classes by themselves, and can they be left alone for the day, or are you going to need some help? Because yeah, it's terrible. Like, what are we all supposed to do, right? And here's another point that I'd like to make to these idiots running the school district. I pay something like $6,000 a year in school taxes. My kids haven't had school since March, right? Am I getting any money back because it's all been shut down? No, of course not. They're just keeping my money and not providing the services that I'm paying for. Professor Fez, she's attractive. I have nothing against people being attractive and or smart. I think Tracy is both. Not that I agree with everything that she says. Yeah, but Dolan's wife, come on, man. He hit the jackpot. Did you see his last wife? Ooh, what an upgrade. That is quite an upgrade. Congratulations, Richard Dolan. You got quite an upgrade going there. I want a bullshit story in order to give money. Yeah, we all need that. It's only been half a year, but it's a crucial learning point for children. 6 months can be a long time. Just wonder how the isolation affects kids. Yeah, I wonder about that myself, I mean, my autistic son doesn't speak very much, and I'm not sure how much he understands, but my 4-year-old sure does, and it's been rough. Jeanette Krasenko, cold hard cash, silver bars, gold bars, whatever. Yes, we want all of that. Become a worm, you dirty blood-sucking leeches. Yeah, get up off your asses and donate, Vanessa Thor. Get up off your asses and donate. What a strange way to wake up. If you're waking up to me, Spooky, yeah, I agree. That is a very strange way to wake up. I worked in a community aged care too. Lots of lonely people out there. Yeah, I used to spend a lot of time at those senior homes while I was setting up or breaking down, and sometimes I would stay and just like go have coffee with one of them. And really it was with the ones that I could tell just needed to talk to somebody. They needed a friend. There's a lot of lonely people in those places. I always felt bad. My heart goes out to all of you parents in this odd world we are now trying to navigate. Yeah, it's just a crazy time. It's a crazy time. Jasmyne Emmerick, I've seen her talk. She's cold and false. Yeah, I seen her TED talk, and she was like crying and shit, and I turned it off. I couldn't watch it. I said, this is stupid, and I turned it off. BG's, I'm really worried about my son. I think I'm going to start counseling for him to deal with the isolation and lack of interaction with other kids. It's sad to watch. I'm sorry to hear that, Truth. Yeah, this is unprecedented times. We've never had to deal with something like this. And the scariest part is that people are now, I've been reading everything, coming across the news. And the scariest thing about all of this is that there are some infectious disease experts that are saying that don't get too comfortable, right? If they get a COVID vaccine tomorrow, don't get real comfortable, because there's more of this shit coming our way. And that is a scary thought. I mean, what if this is just the way life is going to be forever now? That is terrible, a terrible, terrible thought. And I really hope that doesn't happen. Check out her TED Talks. Can't be nice for Richard having so many guys trying to pick up his wife, though. I feel for him in that. Yeah. He better keep making those UFO dollars and keep her happy. That's what he's got to do. That's why he needs money, Professor Fez. That's why he needs money more than ever. He's got a hot wife that he's got to keep happy. You ain't keeping a hot wife happy like that if you're broke as shit, Professor Fez. So, buy his latest book, you leeches. He needs some money. Dolan's wife used to be a member of the Ramtha cult, is a practicing remote viewer, and has latched onto Dolan's fame like a moth to a flame. Not a fan. Yeah, I don't know if it's true, but I heard that she met him at a UFO conference and, chatted him up, and she was like starstruck, and I don't know if that's true, Keltruth77 says, my son is not self-motivated, so I'm super worried about what's going to happen this year. I hope he doesn't flunk out. He was doing so good before this. Yeah, it sucks. This whole thing sucks. Vanessa Thor, if my son doesn't attend the virtual classes, quad, so I have to attend constant with him, he won't be eligible to return when it is safe. That's the situation that we're in. They're telling me if he doesn't go back to school in September, because they want my autistic son to go to school 4 days a week. And I think they're telling my wife that if he doesn't return in September, he can't come back for the whole year. Even if, like let's say they get the vaccine in, December and everybody gets it, he can't go back in January, which that's not right to me either, Chris Voss has an interesting TED Talk about hostage negotiations. I have seen that TED Talk. I like TED Talks. I definitely like TED Talks. Y'all have been wonderful. Good show. Truth Seekers, love hanging with you. But bed calleth. Yeah, me too. We're gonna cut this short soon. She's got her own racket going in the DHS Friday. Dylan's riding his wave. Yeah. Yeah, I heard that too, John Craze Phase. Wasn't she trained by Jay-Z Knight? I heard that she was, and then there's a famous remote viewer that teaches a lot of people remote viewing that she was also involved with. What the heck? Keltruth asks, what the heck is a TED Talk? TED Talks, they get different people to give talks on different subjects. Sometimes it's very interesting. Some of the talks are by like famous people that you might want to, listen to. Sometimes it's about there's a lot of TED Talks actually about magic, believe it or not. They get magicians once in a while to sort of explain the psychology of magic and how it works. I noticed that. They get a lot of self-help people like Tony Robbins and things like that to do TED Talks. It's just it's kind of like listening to a short lecture by somebody about a certain different topics. I enjoy them. Yes, let me just check something here. Tracy Dawn can remote view my house anytime. Oh, Mario Heat, leave it to you. Professor Fez, Jiggy, check out her fake tears on TED Talk. It's nauseating. Hollywood grade bullshit. Yeah, I thought it was crocodile tears myself. Here you go, Cal. There you go. You can check out TED Talks. You might enjoy them. Brad Gray agrees with Jiggy on that one. I was thinking the same thing. Yes. Stanford Research Institute, Russell Targ and Putoff, which, by the way, has nothing to do with Stanford University. They just named it that so people would think it has something to do with Stanford University. And that is scammy. If you ask me, that is a conny, scammy thing to do. Yes, friends. So actually, we're going to call this a quick one today. We're just past an hour and 20 minutes. This story, the presentation was pretty short tonight. There's a lot more material on this New Jersey alien case, but I thought we would save a lot of the other stuff for part 2. Most of the grifters' wives are in on it and their partners in crime. Yeah, because they like the money. They love the money. You gotta love the money, friends. That's what it's all about. You gotta help your husband get those con dollars coming in. Keep the con dollars coming in. That's what you gotta do. If you're married to the guy, right? I guess you gotta help him so that he can continue to keep the con dollars rolling in. Yeah, and you're right. I see a lot of husband and wife teams, whether the wife is in the spotlight at all or just behind the scenes, like collecting the money for the books at the conferences and things like that, running the stand, right, Jicky? They all work together. So, friends, I think we're gonna wrap things up here. I have several other things that I have to do. There should be a show once again tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Oh, one other bit of business. Sarah Adams, everybody's been asking me when that interview is going to be. She's told me now that she just had surgery and she can't even speak. So I don't know when she'll be able to do the interview. Take from that what you will, but she finally did get back to me after 4 messages sent to her and requests for doing the final interview. I'm not sure what to think, but okay. I can't blame her if she's got some medical thing going on, right? We're gonna just give her some time. Hopefully, she'll be recouping and she'll be able to do the interview, and we'll do the final part 3 of the strange case of Sarah Adams, and we'll unpack everything left to unpack. And there is quite a lot, friends. I think I'm going to have to go fast and furious to fit that all into 2 hours, but we'll do our very best. Okay, friends. So I want to thank you all for joining me. Please do remember that there's a few ways to support me. And if you like this kind of content, I would appreciate your support. There's donate buttons in the about links, but I'm not going to do my usual begging for money thing. We kind of joke about everybody needs money, but it's true. The other way that you can support me is to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos with your friends, your family. Post them on Facebook, post them on Twitter. And also, you probably know some people that are interested in this kind of content and these kind of strange, mysterious subjects. It would be very helpful to me if you could send them our YouTube channel link and ask them to subscribe to our channel here. I think at last I checked, we're almost halfway to our big goal of 1,000 subscribers so that we can monetize the channel and take super chat donations. In the meantime, we've got those not so super chat donations in the form of PayPal donations. And if you put a note, I read off whatever you put. Please make sure if you give a donation, you put your chat user ID, because I don't want to read your real name on air, and you probably don't want me to either. So If you donate, just put, your chat ID and then whatever you want me to say, and I will thank you and read whatever you would like me to, whatever message you would like. There's just a thing there, add a note. You can sign up on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. We give out a bunch of backstage goodies there. But I realize that it's a trying time. Everybody's broke, including me. So if you don't have a couple of bucks, hey, it costs nothing to like, comment, subscribe, share, or to do me a really big favor, which is to send this channel to all of your friends that you know who like this kind of content. Tell them a little bit about the show and ask them to come and join us here. We would really benefit from a larger audience. So with that, friends, I'm going to say God bless and good night.